Hey, I'm so glad you're joining us. Thank you. It's Unleashing Kingdom Voices. I'm Theresa, Croft, your host. And this episode is brought to you by Millionaire Momentum. Three keys to creating millionaire momentum: save money, grow yourself, and build wealth and impact. A short video will be in the show notes to tell you more about that. So I'm so excited about our guests. By the way, we're talking a mile a minute before we went live, and I figured we better go live. You might miss something. Deb Harrison is my guest. She's a growth and change catalyst and kindness advocate. We could just stop right now. Helping individuals and organizations improve their well-being and performance. In addition, Deb is a powerful writer and speaker. Her services span from coaching and facilitation to planning and training. Her past guests are a list of elite people. So will you please help me welcome Deb Harrison. Deb, so cool.
Hey, great to be here.
I was going to tell, excuse me, I got to do this.
Go for it. I feel you.
We're
I feel
live.
you. I've got the allergies too.
It's too much cream in the coffee. So Deb, let me tell you guys how I met Deb. We're at the same mastermind, awesome mastermind. And I think it was my first mastermind. And I got to meet Deb and Linda, who introduced me. But I'll never forget it. It was like the end of the mastermind. I look over and they're announcing an award. And I just got this feeling that Deb's going to win it. So I'm really keyed in on her. She's videoing it. And then they said her name and she's like, and I wanted to grab over there and grab your phone, but I did find out other people videoed you.
Somebody else did. Yeah.
That's my memory. I mean, and then just kindness exudes out of you. And that's pretty cool because you could be in a mastermind and, not know people, but I can definitely attest to the kindness effect, the Deb effect. So anyway, it's great to have you here.
It's great to be here. And I love that. And I love that introduction. And I love that story. A couple other people had similar things. They kind of afterwards grabbed me and were like, you were videotaping for whoever was going to get the award. And I was like, I indeed was.
Yeah, like I got a cross between, do I run over there and get her phone? But I wasn't quick enough to pull my phone out. But I'm glad you had lots of friends.
Somebody else grabbed it.
They had you covered. That was fun. So why don't you just give us a little journey of how you've got to this place where I think you're a really amazing person. You know how to use video, which is my heart. But more than anything, give me a journey of your voice.
Ooh, journey of my voice. So my voice, I think, has been pretty consistent, right? So I think like sometimes people look back over their life and they'll feel like they've had different voices. I feel like my voice has been pretty consistent in terms of its messaging, but the volume and visibility of it is what's really changed over the course of my life, and especially the last couple of years.
Wow.
So
what was that journey like to grow your voice? Was it like just a consistent work, or was it there was life stuff that happened that helped the journey or didn't help the journey?
Yeah, well, both. Yes to everything that you just said. So when I was little, right? I mean, if you talk to people from when I was a small child, and I grew up in a household, there was a lot of trauma, but there was also a lot of amazing beauty. Okay. And so, one of the things I'll talk about a lot of times in my keynote speaking is the fact that, beautiful and awful things can exist together. And it's a tricky thing to maneuver through it because we tend to want to kind of say this is a good situation or this is a bad situation.
Wow.
And it's an intermingling, right? So I grew up in this household where I had encouraged to read and encouraged to be creative and encouraged to explore the outdoors. But there was also both my parents were alcoholics and there was abuse. So trying to maneuvering through that dynamics. But in the midst of that, I was kind of, I was like the one that just kept wanting to speak out. Right. And I think it could have gone either way. I could have suppressed it. And there was definitely a lot of emotions that were oppressed, and that created a lot of turmoil that I had to work through.
Yeah.
But I was constantly trying to explore my voice, and it's hard to tell exactly what triggered it, but I can remember even being really little. I was like in second grade and I had joined the Little League team, and I was like coaching some of the older girls, like giving them encouragement.
Wow.
And some of the older girls were joking around with like, oh, you're like a little mini coach. And they started to call me short stuff. And that just carried on. I've always had this desire to see the good in people and help them see it in themselves and help them use it. So for the length of my life, I can remember all of these experiences. And I think what's helped me to grow my voice and my confidence in speaking it is recognizing that people aren't going to know that you can help them if you don't tell them that you can help them.
Wow.
And that we have, all of us, these amazing gifts, these amazing stories. And part of what creates the beauty of our world is us all sharing those so that we can all benefit from them. And the
So
more
good.
I leaned into that and realized, if I don't share this, what is the bigger reason for me not sharing it? And what is the benefit if I do share it?
Wow.
And the incredible feedback, like from folks like yourself, right? Like you saying
Yeah.
that message. And I mean, I have a whole other story from that experience when we first met each other too. But that every time somebody speaks into me and tells me, like,
Mm,
Deb, you're so kind and you're really doing
yeah.
great things, like that message comes with me. Like what you just said to me, I'll carry with me for the rest of my life. Like
Yeah.
that's now going to become part of my journey. So every impact I
Mm,
make, you will
yeah.
be part of that impact because you just spoke into me with those
That's
words.
cool.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, how cool is that? Right?
Yeah. I love you speak to me and this, like, if you got something to help people, what's keeping you from sharing it? Now, the reason that kind of hits me, and I appreciate you saying that, it's like I can see all the slimy way things are done where people are just spamming online. And I'm like, I don't want that. But I could get to the not know if judgment, but get to the I don't want that too. I never share because I don't want to look like them. I'm really serious. I'm bridging that gap between how do I don't like they talk about their product, their service. It just blows me away. But I got to bridge the gap because I do have some services. And so that really spoke to me. I just got to tell you
Mm,
that. Thank you for saying that. Because I think when you pick up stuff, I think that's for you. Because that just
absolutely.
blew out. Um, you know, let me ask you this. I love to ask this question. When you were young, you kind of gave me a little idea, but for fun, what did you like to do when you're just alone playing?
So a lot of and some of the same things. So I loved to climb trees and explore
Okay.
the woods. I did have an older brother, so I wasn't always alone doing that. He
Yeah.
was with me doing that. But part of that, like my exploration, whether it was in the woods or whether it was in my bedroom, right? Like
Right.
adventures, like there was constantly creation going on in my
Mm.
mind with, my stuffed animals were talking or walking through the woods and I'm writing a story. That like creative thing was turning that I think I kind of took for granted that that's what's going on in everybody's head. And it's
Yeah.
not until you get, a little bit older and you start to share it that people start to point out that that's unique. And that's like, that really runs through. I just love to be creating things in my head.
Yeah.
And I would I would go in my closet. Like I can't really tell you exactly what I thought the benefit was, but like well, now I actually can, but I would like go in my closet. I think the security in there because there was a
Mm.
lot of stuff that was going on.
Sure.
And I would like to talk to God in there, or I
Wow.
would talk to my stuffed animals. So, I mean, I like to kind of have that period of isolation, of
Hmm.
selfness, and being able to kind of do that. But a lot of, again, writing, reading, exploring. I liked to get dirty. That was
Yeah.
fun, and
Yeah.
that hasn't changed. So you could probably still find me out playing in the dirt.
The reason I like to ask that question is I think there are threads to our identity, to what we like to do now from our past. Like for me, it was we lived in this one house, I was probably 5 or 6, and they had huge steps. And I'd climb up to the top of the steps and I'd preach. I was Catholic, but and then we moved, and I'll never forget it. There weren't those large steps. And I'm like, oh, I saw an apple cart. So I get on top of the apple cart and I would preach. What do I do? Years later, I open up an Apple computer. I have an Apple phone with filters, of course. So
Mm,
I love that question because look what you're doing now. You're just doing an adult version, and you really
right.
are creating, no doubt about that. But I'd like to think like on YouTube, you're exploring, but it's a new frontier, and you're leading the way for others to follow what you're doing. That's brilliant. I mean, have you ever
Thank
thought about
you.
that? You are creating a new frontier. Ha!
Yeah, that is powerful. That is. And
Yes, I
I got to
could
tell you, Teresa, one of the things I think is really, and you just said before, so I want to refer back to that, how when we take pieces of what people say and you're like, "Oh, I hear that message for me. I know that message is for me." And I've been talking lately a lot about this because people have been saying to me like, "Oh, what's the secret? What's where your YouTube is growing and stuff." And so it's interesting that in around, I mean, I forget exact year, but I want to say like 2010, 2011, I had started doing video because I had always liked photography and videography. So even before, so let me say even before an online, so before
Yeah.
2010 and before 2011, when I was a little kid, you got the camcorder, right? I was creating videos. Like I was thought it was cool. I'm not just capturing the moment with the camera, which I also love, but I'm
Yes.
capturing the essence of it because I think like moments are so beautiful and it's
Mm,
really cool to capture them, though sometimes you can't quite. So I'd already always had a love for that format and
that's
being able to
cool.
look back at it. But
Yeah.
then I did a couple go lives on Facebook and it was like 2011. So it really
Like,
wasn't like the thing to do
yeah,
then.
that was major to like, you're brave back then. That's what people
Right.
said. Yeah.
Well, and so when I think about if I'd kept going, right? If I kept going live on Facebook from 2011, we're talking 13 years later,
Yeah.
just the sheer number of followers I would probably have because of time, right? The
Yeah.
passage of time.
Yeah.
So you get to go and, oh, wow, I could have done that, right? But it wasn't the same message. And even though like I look back at like my early go lives and I'm like, all right,
Yeah.
like I'm still kind of saying the same thing, but
That's
I've been
okay.
through a whole journey and I think it's very purposeful for me to have not done that and to be coming in now, like you just said, the new frontier. And I'm like,
Yeah,
yeah, I mean,
that is.
this is me at 48, right? It's
Yeah.
not me as I was 13 years ago. It's me at 48 going, you know what? I'm going to step forward and I'm going to say some of this stuff. And some of it's not necessarily going to be what's trending, but it's
That's
going to be
okay.
what's on my heart. And that's what I
Yeah.
want to do. And so, as we talked before we started the recording, the analytics are essential, right? You want to study
Right.
those analytics, you want to understand
Right.
what's working and what's not working, but you
Yeah.
don't want the analytics to define your voice and your
Mm,
message.
so good.
So, yeah, you can, there are many people that just want to be good on YouTube. That's their goal. And so then they're going
Mhm.
to maybe adjust. They're going to try to pick the niche that's popular but not saturated. But
Ooh,
for me,
smart. Yeah.
YouTube wasn't the goal. YouTube was a platform that I'm going to use to spread the
Thank you.
message. And so my focus needs to be on my message.
Oh, thank you for saying that because I agree with that totally. When you said you had trauma, I always talk about the voice. I've been doing that for quite a few years, but I lost my husband. It'll be 2 years and this June, but it wasn't a good marriage. I mean, I have a whole
Mm,
story on how, you know, it was a narcissistic abuse. And so my heart is so, like you're saying it, trauma can make you voiceless. And I'm glad you're not voiceless, but I want to help the women who feel voiceless
right.
discover transformation by finding their voice by their identity and then speaking, serving the person they once were. I think there's a lot of that in you. You're speaking the person to who you were, but you're taking the creativity, you're taking the, hey, I don't care. Yeah, I care about analytics, but you're not gonna define, you're gonna keep your voice, is what I'm trying to say. I
Right.
mean, you're like an ideal person on the podcast because that's what it's about, unleashing voices. And I
Right.
think as you talk, I think you're gonna, and on the podcast or live, I just really believe there's gonna be maybe just you speaking that way. I believe you could be unleashing voices now, whether they
I
hear it
hope
on the
so.
podcast or not. So I really want to thank you for that. You're so fun to talk to. So, media speaking. Now, I know you're a speaker. Does that just kind of flow over from your media, or do you like Jen had that great outline for a keynote speaker? How do you translate from the video to maybe speaking?
Yeah, I think they feed each other. Now, for
Okay.
me, and I'm going to go back a second because you said
Okay.
something that's going to tie into this, and I want to touch on it. You were
Okay.
talking about you were in an unhealthy marriage and the voice, right? So I do want to note, even though I had the voice inside of me, I had a lot of insecurity, major, major insecurity. I
Yeah.
mean, there's some posts I'm going to be doing that I haven't done yet that deal with like the insecurity. And even as I got older, so I was into unhealthy marriages. Um, by the grace of God, I ended up, getting married a third time to my best friend because I had really
Oh,
said like I
good.
can't do this again.
Thank you. That's good.
But yeah, I can empathize with that. And when you're in an unhealthy marriage, whatever that entails, because there are many ways that can
Yeah.
be defined,
Yeah.
you do lose your voice in a piece because when you enter into a marriage or entering into a relationship where there's a degree of we're going to become one, right? You're individuals, but you're going to become one marriage, one thing. And so you're trying to figure that out. And if there's not alignment or there had been a misrepresentation, there's a lot of dissonance that happens there. And
Yeah.
that leaves a permanent impact. I don't think it's not a matter of like recovering after the fact. I think you're always going to be impacted by that situation in
Sure.
positive and negative ways. So
Yeah.
we kind of learn forward. So that voice, right? I think that desire that you spoke about, that kind of being able to unleash the voice that's suppressed inside of you. I
Yeah.
think the speaking in person and the speaking in media help to drive each other forward.
Okay.
Because I had been a teacher and because I had been doing a lot of activities where I was naturally speaking,
Okay.
I already became a storyteller. Like that was, you know, you're talking about Jen, like that's all that was already,
In
I
you.
didn't even think of it as a speaking format. It's just what I did, right? Like I
Yeah.
would start off by telling a story, stories of my childhood, stories of
So
my
good.
now. And when you become more confident on camera because you're talking to
Makes
whomever,
sense.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't know how many people you're talking to. You
Yeah.
bring some of that stuff back to like, hey, if I could speak to an audience that I wasn't even aware of who they were, right? Because you release a video, then when I'm in the audience, now I'm going to take advantage of the opportunity to keep that confidence, but also
Oh,
make those
wow.
connections. And when you make those connections, when you're in person, you carry that over to your video and your lives because you're thinking the same situation exists. You're just not necessarily seeing people's eyes, but people are out there, they're watching it. Like
Yeah.
when you say like you could be helping unleash somebody's voice, like that just gives me goosebumps. Cause in my mind, like there is no small audience, right?
Yeah.
Like one person,
Yeah.
that's gigantic because you impact somebody in a way that allows them to feel better about themselves. Not
Right.
only do they live better, who knows who else they might help down the road, but just that
Exactly.
one life, every
Yeah.
life is incredible.
That's so
So,
good.
yeah,
Yeah.
we've a powerful opportunity with video to reach people where they are, um,
Yeah.
and allow them to take in the information without fear of, you know, people around them that might be
Yeah.
looking at them. So, I think it's a
That's
brilliant,
good.
brilliant platform.
And you've taken it from YouTube. You also now have a podcast, right?
Yeah, so I haven't I'm not really calling it a podcast yet, though
Okay.
probably it really in theory is. I just
Okay.
hadn't ever
That's cool.
I for years, like, you know, it's not this is the funny thing, right? I keep saying, "Oh, for years," and it really is true. Like, there's all this stuff that I've been planning on doing, and now I'm just like, it's now.
Yeah.
Like, I used to have one of my friend's parents used to always say to me, like, I should have a radio show. She's like, "You should have a radio show. You like to ask questions and listen, and you like to tell stories. You've got that voice." So what I really started doing was I'm like, I'm just gonna start going to go live with people, and I'm just
So
gonna
good.
chat with them. So I have a thing that's coming up that I'm going to be doing with the that Deb hashtag, right? Like in my
Yeah.
house, when I joke around, I go that Deb,
Okay.
right? Hashtag that Deb,
That's
because
cool.
there are like thousands of Deb Harrisons, and so we were talking about, you know,
Oh,
each person is unique. So even though there's all these other Deb Harrisons, I'm that Deb.
that's
And
good.
there's something that's coming with that I don't want to talk too
You
much
know,
about
it's
it, but
funny. When I was doing the headline and everything, working around with it, it didn't say your last name. So it's already got the that Deb somewhere in it. Isn't that cool? I think that's
that
really
is
cool.
cool. It is.
You know, I was in radio for 15 and a half years. And after I had to retire because our family moved, it was devastating. But now someone will say, "Do you want to be on radio again?" I'm like, "No, I want to have my own show, you know, my own podcast, my own video channel." So I can really relate to that. So let me ask you a question. Someone may be listening and thinking, "I like this, Deb." Okay. How important, Deb, is investing in yourself to really have, to really hone in the creativity, to really gain the confidence and lose the imposter syndrome? How important is investing in yourself?
I'm 100%, right? And I think investment can be interpreted in multiple ways, all of which at the end have value with a capital V associated with them, right? So
Yeah.
there's a time investment and there's a money investment. And often there's a price tag associated with the time because sometimes the time means you're going to be doing less of something that you might be getting paid for. So
Yeah.
whatever way you look at it. But from the moment you make that commitment, that decision that you're going to invest the time or money into that, you are telling yourself that you believe in you. For me, with my faith, I'm telling God, I trust you. I know that you've
Yeah.
given me these gifts and I need to make them a priority.
So good.
Because when we don't, even if we say like, oh, you know, I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do it when I have spare time, it's like you're not really driving yourself into it. So
Wow.
much of my impact, you know, you mentioned the mastermind that we joined.
Yes.
I, at
Wonderful.
the end of 2022, I had I was taking some courses. I was still doing some client work, but I was doing some stuff because I was like, I got to start investing, right? Investing
Okay.
specific concentrated time. I'm going to put time aside to write. It's not going to be
Yeah.
when I have time. Came across Jen's Best Year Blueprint, did the
Okay.
Best Year Blueprint, and was like, it like sold me on myself, right? Like, I'm
Nice.
like, yeah, like this is the person I got to support, me, right?
Right.
This is the person I got to support because she's got a gift and a message,
No
which
doubt.
is what ultimately led me to the mastermind. And
Okay.
in the mastermind, you're putting in the time, you're putting in the money, you're putting in the effort and the energy to interact and network.
Yeah.
You know, historically, I'd prefer to be on a stage than kind of making small chat with people. It used to be
Sure.
something that was kind of overwhelming.
Yeah.
And now I'm making a point of that, and I find that it's filling me. So, I mean, the momentum just picks up the more that
That's
you
so good.
feed into yourself. And particularly because like people will say like, oh, I have a hard time with doing kind things for myself because I'm a people pleaser. And I don't necessarily think that those two have to be
Right.
drastic opposites, right? You can want to be kind and help other people and include yourself into it. When we talk
Amen.
about everybody's a miracle, guess who that includes? You,
Amen. That's so
right?
good. That's
So
so
it's
good.
not one or the other. You can that
Yeah.
kindness should really exude on yourself as well.
Yeah. That's so good. And if you don't have compassion on yourself, then you're losing out on a mental thing. You brought your faith in, but it was really beautiful how you interwoven this. I am a kingdom person. I am a Christian. My target is women entrepreneurs right now, Christian women. So, but I don't feel like I feel like I'm speaking to everyone, but I understand your
Absolutely.
keywords and everything.
Yeah.
But I like what you said, and I think this is what you do so well. When the camera's on, they get Deb. That is so, a lot of people struggle with that because they like, a lot of people struggle with being authentic, but do you not think that the authenticity of you being you is the key to
Yeah.
your audience, the key to your success? Like, I have no doubt people are listening to this whole podcast. Let's talk about how we be authentic, but still have to let go of the imposter syndrome and all those fears that want to trip us up.
Yeah, we got to be comfortable failing.
Mm,
Failing is a hard word because I don't even think it's failing, but failing in the sense of what we think of that word, right? So if we say, like, for example, I'm going to post content online, and what do you want when you post content online? You want people to read it, and indicators to us of if it's being read or
right.
viewed is the view count, the like count, the subscriber count, right? And so you post something and it's really important to you, and you see it's not getting any traction. You can't take that as okay, my voice is wrong or I'm wrong.
Good.
It's okay. It's that content. Do I think that we should learn from the content and receive feedback from people? Yeah. I do reach out to people and say, hey, what did you think, of that? And I ask very specific questions, not
Uh-huh.
general. You don't
Okay.
ask general, like, was that okay? You ask,
Right.
did you like the message? Did you like the right? Really engage in it. So I do think you should learn. But at the end of the day, you need to be checking in with yourself and God. You need to be checking in. Am I being true to
Yeah.
my core,
That's good.
message? And
Yeah.
so that's how you maintain that authenticity is keeping the value in that you're delivering your message clear, that your intentions were right. If you were looking because you're trying to do it for the positive reasons, then you forgive yourself for whatever results you didn't achieve that
Yeah.
you thought you were supposed to achieve. And then I think
So good.
leaning into like the silly things like this. Okay, so for example, like right, a lot of us say and there's a lot of tools out there that can pull the
They
ums
can pull
out of your mouth,
those out. Yeah.
and that's okay, and that's fine, right? I'm not saying you should or shouldn't, but for
Right.
example, like traditionally speaking, when we advised people on public speaking, it was to kind of get rid of those phrases. There's a thing that I do sometimes. Now people aren't going to be able to not see it. Every once in a while I'll go, I don't even know what I'm doing. I make this like clicking noise with
Uh-huh.
my tongue. But you get so in your head about let me not do that. Let me not
Okay.
do that. That you're losing what you just said, the
Wow.
authenticity. So I think you got to kind of just let go of some of the things and,
Yeah.
practice, right? It doesn't mean you don't
Yeah.
try to refine it, but if you're obsessing about not saying or not making the little clicking noise or that
That's
you
so
bounce
good.
in your chair, you're less inclined to just be yourself. So
That's so
even like
good.
external noises, like I'll call out if somebody walks in the background, the door
Uh-huh.
opens and closes. I know people are hearing it, so unless it's really disruptive, I might even go like, "Oh, that was a kid walking in. They didn't realize
Uh-huh.
I was on a." So I think like being
Yeah.
present where you are and
So
owning
good.
the situation so that people know that who they're getting is you, not some version of
Yeah.
you.
That's so
I don't
good.
want somebody to fall in love with the image, not fall in love with, like, romantically fall in love
I
with.
understand. Yeah.
And then when I'm interacting with people, like, it be disconnected from the person that they thought I was. Like, I want
Yeah.
people to meet me and either be like, that's even better than I thought," or to be like, "Yeah, that's what I expected," right? Like, I want people to meet me in person and feel that. Now, it's really hard on video, but I think, like, letting yourself just make those mistakes and not worrying so much,
That's
it's just
so
part
good.
of it. Yeah, it's part of it.
I have to tell you that I'm 60 years old, which the 60 just really hit me hard. And Deb, what I struggle with, and I have a therapist, a neuropsycho facilitator. She's actually my friend. It's like I struggle. I'm going to say it now. Everyone's going to look there. I struggle with the circles. One day I was doing a video and I wasn't live, and I was like, I was working on a promo, and I had put under eye makeup here way bad, and on this side not, and I was like, I was so freaking mad. So I sent it to my friend. I said, "Look at this! Isn't this terrible?" And she says, "Theresa, and this is a good word for me. It's a good word for anyone who has something they maybe don't like about their parents." She says, "Theresa, they're not looking at you. They're looking at the wisdom you can help them with." I said, "Okay, that's real fine, but I'm not going to air that video." Or you know what I did? I put it into script and I covered up with video. so, so I have to come candidly. Now, granted, I love
Yeah.
Instagram. I think got this one basic filter that will take that away, and it doesn't look
We've
all
all do
perfect.
it. We've
You
all
know,
done it.
it
I've got
doesn't
it,
look
and then, like I said, I've got allergies going on right now. My
so.
nose is
Yeah,
red, and I'm like, "You know what? I'm turning the ring light on, let them see me in
yeah.
all my
I'm
allergy
like, how
glory."
do I position these lights? Okay, I'm going to use my camera because the video on my iMac is terrible. It just brings out. So it's just being vain. But
Oh,
I
can
will
I ask
tell
you a
you,
question? Can
yeah.
I oh, you were gonna say something, go
No,
ahead.
I was ending that thought.
I was gonna ask you a question because it's interesting. Tell me, how do you feel now after having just said that out loud? Knowing people are gonna watch it, do you feel better
um,
or worse that you just owned
I
it and
have
said it?
said it a few times that I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
Believe me, I've got therapy on it,
No,
and
because I think, like, when we say it to the public, like, when we
yeah,
call that out, it
yeah.
actually makes us feel less self-conscious because it's
I
like,
I
I'm aware
agree.
of this, and if you're gonna make
Yeah.
fun of it, which people will, I mean, I've had people post some awful some even compliments, but that I was like, "That needs to be hidden." So, I mean, you get all kinds of
Yeah,
stuff
I
in
and I
response to videos, but, like,
you put yourself
you're
out
right.
there. Yeah, but,
Yeah.
I'm not ruled by that, so but I appreciate the like, you don't know why you do that. I do put a little makeup on, but some days, some lighting is like today is one of those days.
Yeah, I mean, my like I said, my
I'm
face,
glad
my
I'm on a
allergies,
you on the
I was gonna
podcast
grab a sweater, but
yeah.
that's alright.
You on the podcast can just imagine this. That's all. Go to YouTube or Deb's YouTube, and you'll be able to see
Oh,
that.
they're listening, right, yeah,
Yeah.
that's right,
No,
okay, yeah,
they're
they can
seeing.
go.
I mean, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. I got 5 on that are listening live. We got a little few people on, so it doesn't see. I don't even look over there because
I don't either, I have no
it's
idea, and it's
it's
it's all good.
content. It's doing. I mean, to have you as content is like a dream. I mean, we're just talking. The way I like to look at it, Deb. It's like you and I don't know if you drink coffee, but you and I are having a cup of coffee talking, and they get the
Exactly.
privilege of listening in. That's the way I do my podcast. I'm like, I don't have a lot of questions. I mean, I kind of wing it, but I don't wing it because the Holy Spirit
I know
helps
what you
me wing
mean.
it. But
Yeah,
I'm
no,
here.
absolutely.
But
You're
you
ready to be flexible with the way the conversations flow.
yeah, and I'm
Right.
sure 15 years in radio has helped that too. But so I just want to dig deeper onto some of these things. And the one thing I want to do is I imagine a listener who has this creativity, but they don't know how to take it to the next level. Their next level may be putting it on Facebook. Their next level may be, putting it in a book. And let me tell you, imperfect action is better than no action. If I didn't take imperfect actions, I wouldn't have 3 devotionals on YouTube, on Amazon. They'd be still on my computer. So, with that thought in mind, imperfect action is better than no action. But someone's listening, Deb, and they need like Coach Deb to encourage them to get that material where some other can see it.
Well, there's two levels to it. First is, I think, because you're talking about uncovering your creativity, right? Because there's certain people you'll talk to and they'll say like, "Oh, I'm not a creative person," and I think everybody's creative. It's like the theory of multiple intelligences, which isn't a theory; it's a reality, right? Different people have different versions of excellence,
Wow.
and everybody has excellence. Everybody, there's no person that's lacking in that. And
Okay.
so it's finding your place of creativity, right? So, for example, there's creativity in an engineer figuring out what is the best way that we're going to do this. It's going to make it,
Very
fit
good.
together right. So you don't normally think of an engineer as creative. You think of them more as being very mathematical and scientific. And we think,
Yeah.
okay, that's not creative, but creativity runs the gamut. So tap into the acknowledgement right now, the statement, I am
Amen.
creative, period. Everybody should be saying
Amen.
that I am creative. There's
Come
no like,
on.
I need to find it. How do you feed
Yes.
creativity? You feed creativity with curiosity. And what does that mean? It means looking at
Okay.
the world around you and the people you interact with and understanding that you can learn from everything, including yourself. So the thoughts that pop into your head that were like, that was a weird thought. Okay, let's think about that weird thought. Sometimes those weird thoughts are our creativity popping up into us, right? So like when you think a random thing like, what would it be like if that tree were purple?
Mm.
Yeah, what would it be like if that tree were purple? Now, I do want to add that there are some thoughts that pop into our head, negative messages and stuff that we want to
Right.
pay attention to address, but you don't need to dwell and go down writing the story of the worst case scenarios. But some of those things that come into our mind, be curious about them. Like, where is that coming from? What can I learn from myself?
So good.
So one is, I am creative, own it. Two is, be curious about it. So what are you going to discover about yourself and the world around you? And once you've done that and you've acknowledged that you're creative, you've acknowledged that you're learning and you're growing, so you're feeding that creativity, then it's keeping in mind that every single person on this earth, every single person is an incredible miracle, and there's nobody better than or less than anybody else.
So good.
And so with that in mind, you have got information and ideas that other people will either just enjoy or benefit from, right? So
Yeah.
however you want to look at it, whether it entertains, which is definitely a form of benefit anyway, but can benefit. So why would you not? Right?
Whew.
So instead of asking the why should I, why would you not?
Wow.
You're a creative genius, you know how to learn, and you've got an audience out there that's ready.
Wow.
So, obviously there's a whole bunch of core values that come into place with making sure your messaging is aligned with what your values are and that you're thinking about those things and understanding who you're speaking to, right? You're not necessarily going to run a class for toddlers on astrodynamics, but you might. I mean, maybe there's an audience for that. But
Look, I think some people are writing notes right now. If you're not, rewind and get that. 'Cause that's a framework that you can follow. I love it. And I love when it's ultimately said, this is what you're saying. And I love this phrase. I remind myself often, it's not about me. Like, for example, we get 30 seconds to share what we do. In the last mastermind, I didn't clear my throat. So I'm like, I almost wanted to say to Jen and Chris, could I do that over and clear my throat? Or like my eyes. It's not about me, but that's what I hear you saying. It's about the people that maybe God's called you to serve. It's about your voice expressing itself in the way that God aligned in your. I think everyone in their very DNA has a voice, has a message, has something that's going to help someone. And that's why, I tell you what, that's why I'm so passionate about podcasts, because I think a lot of people would want to do a podcast. And that's why my heart went into podcasting made easy with the AI. And Deb and I were talking before and how easy it is. Back in the day, it was like my head was down in an audio workstation. I'm not a sound engineer. But anyway, I think, I remember when I started my podcast 5 years ago, and I remember thinking, oh, podcasting is peaked out. And it hasn't. But it's the beauty about podcasts, like someone listening to this, maybe you're going down your car. Well, Deb and I are in the car with you. It's so intimate. It's so.
It really is. It really is.
And that's why I'm glad that you're converting yours more over to a podcast, because Deb, you've got a gift. You've got so many gifts, and your voice needs to be continued to hear. So I encourage you. I challenge you. I believe God has set apart a time for the Deb effect to take effect. Kindness. I just believe that you've been set apart for such a time as this. You bring joy, you bring kindness, you bring in your faith. You're not afraid to talk about who your source is. And you're so freaking real. You're as authentic as they get.
Thank
We
you.
need more Deb effects. So thank you. I feel so honored
Thank
to
you.
have you. And so let's talk. Let's let the people connect with you. Where on Facebook can they find you?
So I am at D Harrison PVD on Facebook, and I am at D Harrison PVD on Instagram.
What's the
At
PV? Is it P as in Peter?
Yeah, so
D as
cool.
in-
If you want to hear the story,
I
if you
do
want
want
to,
to hear that
all right,
story.
I'll tell you this real quick. So,
Please, no
uh,
quickness.
I always loved photography, and so I used to do photography for fun. And then people started asking me to do their events and their like portraits of their family. So I had a small little photography videography business called D Harrison Photo, Video, and Design.
Oh, nice.
And so I had it for the longest time, and then it I got too busy to kind of be able to sustain it. But I always kept the URL. And
Nice.
when I decided I wanted to, get my website up and running again for my voice purposes, because I've got another one for my poetry book that's going to be
Okay. Oh,
connected. But
nice.
I was toying with different things, and debharrison.com is owned by a pickleball coach who I hope to do an interview with, actually.
Oh, that's too
I'm
cool.
going to be doing a series of interviews called Deb Harrison Meets Deb Harrison. I don't want to
love
talk too
it.
much about it, but it's going
Oh,
to
that's
be a
so
hoot, I
great.
think.
That's so good.
And
Oh,
so I kind of played around with some different things and realized that, like that website had meaning to me because it was
yeah.
something that I had really been passionate about. So now the P stands for purpose, the V stands for vision, and the D stands for drive. But I
So
decided I'm going
perfect.
to keep it rather than trying to change and
Yeah.
come up with some different URL.
Well,
Just
it
roll
makes it
forward
easier
with it.
because I was trying to find you, and there are a lot of Deb Harrisons. Do you know there's one Theresa Croft, and she's an actress. And I remember I went to, this is random, I went to YouTube, not YouTube, I went to Google a while ago because I used to just dominate. And I'm like, oh, she's dominating. She's an actress. So a lot of times I have to use my middle initial. And it's like, son of a gun, man. And so anyway, that's just
Yeah, I actually joked. I started some videos and then I was like, I want to go off and do this interview thing. So I'm trying to tee that all up and I'm reaching out to people. I've got some stuff I'm building on the back end because I think that's going to
so
be fun.
cool.
It'll be
That's
quirky.
fun. Yeah.
But like I made a video joking around the one day. She is like fantastic. The main Deb Harrison that owns most of Google and that has debharrison.com. I mean, she comes up.
I love that.
She's a pickleball coach.
Oh, I love
And
that.
so her
That's gonna
main
be so
website is, so
good.
I'm giving her shouts out here, but her main site is Pickle Pong Deb, I think. But she has debharrison.com reroutes to that.
Jeez.
And so I was like joking around with my husband. I had a pickleball racket and was like, I'm coming for you, Deb Harrison. I play, but I am not very good. She would wipe me off the court in like half a second, but I think it would be good for a laugh,
so
right?
great.
It'd be good for a laugh.
Hey, just
So
to make you feel better about Facebook Lives, back in the day, let's see, I would do three a week, and just thousands of people would be commenting. Now it's a vast wasteland. If you get three views, it's just like, whoa. But what Facebook wants us to do is pay ads for that video. But doing a live video, I mean, I don't even look. It's like, oh, okay.
yeah, it is fun too because it forces you to not be thinking about, oh, this is going to be edited, right? You're speaking freely, and then after the fact, like I really try to like not like lately, even when I'm like doing quick little snippets for myself, I really try to get it in a couple takes. Unless I really mess up, I'm like, who cares if you flub your words, joke around about it, because like you're talking about authenticity. And after a while, when you say the same thing 15 or 20 times, it like loses the authenticity. So
Okay,
you just got to kind of lean
D
into it.
Harrison
Yep.
PVD.
Yep, and that's on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. I would love it if people would check out YouTube. Instagram is at D Harrison PVD as well.
Okay, which do you prefer? Probably the YouTube is where you're known the most,
yeah,
right?
it's hard to say. I mean, I'm cool with people going everywhere. I mean, I was at 23 on December 20th, and I am at 24,000 on YouTube as of this morning.
That is phenomenal. Thank you for leading the way. I applaud. That's exciting. You are doing your work behind the scenes. So I'm going to be watching you and learning from you because I really want my YouTube to go up a little higher. I want it to be a focus. And I normally don't do this, but we are live on YouTube right now. So Deb, thank you. And I can tell you, if you're listening live, hey, I'm putting Deb to the head of the line. You can listen to the podcast Monday and be able to listen to again. And please bring a notebook because my goodness, the girl just dished out the value. Well, I appreciate you, Deb. Hey,
Thank
are you
you.
gonna be March 4th in Florida?
That's the plan. That's the plan.
All right,
Yeah.
I look forward to doing a dap and saying, "Man, you're awesome."
All right. Thank
All
you.
right,
Take care, everybody. I appreciate you having me on, Theresa.
you
This was
bet.
delightful.
And thank you for listening. Please rate this podcast.com/Theresa Croft. Let people know how awesome this was. Not for a pat on the back, but for this podcast can grow to more viewers. We appreciate you, and we'll talk to you in the next episode. Thank you so much for listening to Unleashing Kingdom Voices.